Two cabinet ministers have resigned amid the scandal, and a third leaving today to go into the private sector, saying it is unrelated. We got an apology from Doug Ford. You just heard it there. Admission he was wrong. Let's bring in the front bench for our final round here on the show. Mariam Monsef, Melanie Paradis, Guratin Singh, Rachel Aiello. Guratin, I'm going to start with you because you were, of course, at one point an Ontario politician for the NDP. Now this is a huge mess for Doug Ford. What do you think?
Well, first of all, you said it best. The path to this point has been terrible for the Conservative government. Two ministers resigned, a third today, a chief of staff has resigned. One of the lowest points for Doug Ford's polling during this whole controversy. Doug Ford didn't just come to this place. He was pulled, kicking and screaming to come to this place. And shout out to the NDP. Mart Stiles did a lot of amazing leadership and advocacy to get us to this place. It was definitely a good moment for Doug Ford to reverse his position, but I give credit to the people of Ontario who fought tooth and nail to protect something so vitally important to our environment, to our food sustainability, like the Greenbelt. But yes, there are still more questions. How deep did this go? How deeply was the Premier aware and involved of this backroom dealing to open up the Greenbelt, to get a tiny amount of people, billions of dollars? There's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and that's going to be found probably going to be the subject of question period for weeks and maybe longer to come.
Mariam Monsef, your take on the chaos at Queen's Park in Toronto.
It's always good when politicians acknowledge their errors in judgment, but in Mr. Ford's case, he apologized for breaking the promise around protecting the Greenbelt, when we can all agree, and understandably so, that what he really regrets is the $8 billion scandal that has been taking over the airways when it comes to his government. And moving forward, in addition to what's going to happen to housing development plans, I'll be interested in three things. One, will Ontarians be on the hook for any legal ramifications from canceling these agreements? And if so, what will that cost us? Second, will there be more to the story? Is there another shoe to drop? Is there going to be more unraveling in the days and weeks to come? And third, will Mr. Ford's otherwise resilient brand be able to withstand this?
Yeah, so Melanie, weigh in here what you think it means possibly for Doug Ford's own future, because certainly the political polling right now, not good, although they still have many years left in their mandate.
Yeah, 2.5 to 3 years left in the mandate. But his brand is resilient. Miriam's right about that. And part of the reason why it's so resilient is because during the pandemic, we saw Premier Ford go out every single day and deliver difficult news to Ontarians. And sometimes that included delivering apologies when mistakes had been made. And he was sincere in those apologies. And we saw the results of the last election made it clear that Ontarians believe that. They see him as being very sincere. So I think that this marks a significant shift in the direction of the government. Certainly when it comes to the Greenbelt, they're now reverting back to where they were originally, that they're not going to touch it. And I don't think that they're going to allow for any more scandals. I think they're going to tighten their belts and make sure that nothing like this happens again. And I also want to note that Dave Pacini has been promoted to Minister of Labour. He's a fantastic, energetic minister, and I think that the labor groups are going to be thrilled to work with him. So that's a really great move by this government in response to this.
Rachel Aiello, what are you watching for here?
Look, I really just have to say this is a testament, this entire story, to investigative journalism. So hat tip to all of the dogged reporters at Queen's Park that have been digging into this story. I think what we heard from Siobhan earlier is potentially this is a shift, but there could be other shoes to drop. An RCMP investigation would be an entire new level. Clearly, any time that a government makes an about-face like this, apologizes, the opposition smell blood. So I do expect that this issue will continue to be pressed there at Queen's Park.
Okay, lightning round. We're almost out of time, but I want to go through all of you if we can keep it quick and concise here. Back to you, Guratin. Doug Ford comes out and he says, look, I made a promise and I broke it. How does that resonate with voters? Do people appreciate that kind of honesty, being genuine, saying, you know what, I messed up?
People definitely appreciate the honesty, but it depends on the path that brought them there. So they think of the fact that he was resistant to so many resignations, and I think the path that brought him here is what people are going to remember, that he wasn't forthwith. It was something that took quite some time.
The next election is quite a while away, Miriam, so time for people to forget about this. What do you think?
I think right now people are consumed by their own day-to-day challenges, but hopefully come the next election, we're going to see a higher voter turnout in Ontario than the 20-something% we saw in the last election.
Obviously, the Ontario Liberals have to elect a new leader, Melanie, and then they will certainly try to capitalize on some of this scandal that's now dogging Doug Ford and has been for months. Your advice, as a Conservative strategist at one point, for the Ford government to try and move past this as quickly as possible?
To do just that, to get back to doing work. I mean, they're so good at getting to work and getting things done. That has been the motto of the Ford government, and they need to redouble their efforts to do exactly that. And they have the benefit of not having a Liberal leader in opposition right now, holding them to account. There's a rudderless NDP, and so I think that they're in a good position to move forward quickly.
Just with you, Mel, if I can ask you, do you think Doug Ford himself is in trouble politically?
The man is Teflon. He's not in trouble.
Rachel Aiello, what do you think?
I think he does have a pretty good ability to be frank and apologize and make about faces. He's done more of these than I can think of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau doing. Usually when Trudeau is being dogged by a scandal, it drags on before they change their minds. So perhaps this is a signal that Doug Ford has realized that this issue needs to be cauterized, this wound, this festering Greenbelt issue. But time will tell whether or not what's unfolded in the last couple of days is enough to end the questions. I doubt it.
Yeah, last word to you, Garetan, as someone with a lot of experience in Ontario politics. The idea that Doug Ford comes out and says, I'm sorry, but as you started off this conversation with, it took a long time to actually get there.
Exactly, and I think that's where Canadians and Ontarians will have a long memory on. We are very adverse to any form of corruption, be it the gas plant under the Liberals or this Greenbelt situation under Doug Ford. They'll remember this, and I think they're going to hold him to account. Also, the second shoe has not dropped. There could be more to this. If an RCMP investigation comes out with any charges, this is something that's going to dog the Premier for some time to come.
Hey, it's great to see all four of you today. Thanks so much for taking the time. Miriam Monsef, Garetan Singh, Melanie Paradis, and our very own Rachel Aiello joining us today on Power Play.